These student loans make a big difference to them in terms of financial. And even with the student loans, they're still worried about paying for the bills. The good news is that the outcome overwhelmingly results in a job.
Welcome to the EdUp Canada podcast. I'm Michael Sangster, your host, and I'm glad you found us. On this podcast, we talk to students, employers, media, stakeholders, anybody who will listen about the impact career colleges have across our country. But more importantly, we talk about the skills people can learn to advance their own lives. So I hope you enjoy this episode of the EdUp Canada podcast. Welcome back to the EdUp Canada podcast. I'm Michael Sangster, your host, and I am joined today for our 75th episode with a guest who's been on before, is an old friend of mine. One of the first people I met when I moved to Ottawa. I ended up with an office across the hall with his brother. The two of them shared an office as they got their company going. They're well beyond that now, and it's fair to say that Mr. Nik Nanos, Order of Canada recipient, honorary captain in the Royal Canadian Navy, and Chancellor of Carleton University, is one of the leading pollsters, public policy information people in Canada, and is a friend, and we're really, really happy about having him on board today. So first off, before we get into why we're here today, Nik, welcome. Good to have you back.
Great to join you, Michael, and all your listeners.
All 14 of them that come in every week to listen to my dulcet tones, as somebody pointed out to me. No, we appreciate that. We had you on talking about some different issues in the spring, I believe it was, but we're back today because we're talking about some research work you recently completed for our association to help us better understand our graduates. We've done some other work, but we're this week releasing that survey around our graduates, and almost 3,000 of our students in the last year were were polled or studied by your team to talk about their experiences in career colleges and why they chose those institutions. So do you want to give a little bit, maybe start off a little background on what you did and how you did it?
Yeah. So, we did an online survey. We did an outreach through the Career College Network to career college graduates right across the country, so from coast to coast to coast. The survey was completed by the mid-August 2025. We had almost 3,000 career college graduates share their views. And, we asked questions on everything from the student experience and motivations through to financing, how they financed and got themselves through their programs, straight through to the employment that they got coming out of the after graduation. So pretty interesting benchmark study on kind of the state of career college graduates and the impact that career colleges have on their students.
NAC, the National Association of Career Colleges, never touched any of the data, held any of the data from the individual students. You kept it all removed and separate from us, and we just got a finalized report, correct?
Yeah, everything, people shared their views with us. All their views were confidential. The only thing that the NACC got was the charts, right? The charts and the big statistical tables that grouped everyone. So confidentiality and maintaining people's confidentiality, especially for some of these questions that we ask, are sensitive. It's kind of like, did you have to go into debt? Did you borrow money? How did you finance your way through your career college and stuff like that? So there was sensitive information. And as a result, everything was strictly confidential in terms of what they shared with Nanos, not shared with any third party, including the client. And NACC just got the charts on the big trends and the big opinions and the statistical tables.
So let's dive in a little bit. We learned some new things. We also got a chance to reinforce some interesting stats. So when we work with governments on different public policy files, it's important to have data, and we don't always have that because of those privacy issues that you talk about. So a couple of interesting things really, really popped out to me. Over 75% of the students were currently working when they jumped into into going into a career college or researching. So they're advancing their career. So they're a different kind of student, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of the key things. I've been doing research in the education sector from school boards, career colleges, universities, and all that kind of stuff. And the one thing that really struck me on the study was the connection between career colleges and employment and careers. And, the thing is that when we asked the career college graduates what the top reasons were for pursuing education with the career college that they attended, at the very top of the list was the whole idea of a potential career pivot or change, or to improve their income, or to advance their current career. So you have to think of the practicality and the real connection that people have between the idea of going to a career college and how that has a materially positive impact on either their income, their current career, or them thinking on how they want to potentially change their careers. And, the thing is, and I think that's really the sweet spot, especially in a world now where there are a lot of people worried about their jobs and the economy. What you have, at least through the career college experience, according to the almost 3,000 graduates that we surveyed, is a really tight connection, a practical connection between the career college and the motivation to keep people's skills sharp, updated, and as an advantage in the marketplace.
So to build on that, I thought what was interesting was that over 80% of those 3,000 graduates, and it was 2,956 or so graduates, 80% of them, over 80% of them are employed in fields related to their studies. We knew it was high. We didn't know it was that high. And that's a really good indication of what our sector's doing.
Yeah, that's an exceptionally strong stat in terms of the connection. Michael, we have to give credit to the graduates themselves. It's pretty clear that they see the value of career colleges, that they go in with a specific plan. And the good news is that for the vast majority, 8 out of every 10, it's absolutely on the mark. Not to diminish some of the other educational opportunities, I'm not sure how much of a direct link we would see in universities, for example. I'd like to say, full disclosure, I'm the chancellor of one of Canada's major universities. The kids go in, or students go in, and they may decide to be in a different area than when they start off. But I think this speaks to the connection. The other thing that's important to note is that these career college graduates, they tend to be a little older. So they're not like coming out of high school necessarily. There are people who are in the workforce. They may have started their career. They're looking to take their career to the next level. They're looking to advance in their career, or maybe adjust things. So, the thing is that 80% success rate is just pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I take your point about it's not a shot at other levels of education, post-secondary education. It's an indication of the shorter, more nimble programs that our colleges offer that are very focused on careers. It's people that are retraining, so they may be in the career and they're adding some skill sets, or they're upgrading. It's also that different age group and different focus that means people got to be a little bit more focused at that point of your career. If you're 35 years old, you're different than 22 years old. I had a fantastic track record, an unbelievable track record at the University of Manitoba Student Pub. My attendance rate was daily. Never missed a day to have a beer with my friends. You have a different approach. So here's an interesting stat that I've found. We knew it, and now we've got it from our graduates. 40% of them, over them, have children already. That tells you a different level of focus in your life.
100% in terms of that level of focus and delivering on that focus. And, I always look at it as a total educational experience, that a lot of these individuals that are going to the career colleges, this isn't their only education that they have. They have other education already, but that they see the career college as a special purpose, focused upskilling that can have an impact, not just on their career. According to the survey, it has an impact on their income, right? In terms of them making more money. That's really came through in the survey to me. So we have to think of really different types of students for the people that are going to the career college, because it's much more focused on their career, much more focused on their employment. It's with purpose. Maybe it's one of those kind of like education with a very clear purpose.
I often hear our instructors and our college owners talking about outcomes. What is the outcome? What is the skill set that student's going to leave the career college with that's going to let them get upgraded in their work or find a new job? So that's, I think, a different way of saying what you're saying.
And, the one thing that really popped with me when I looked at it, I think one of the questions that we asked, Michael, was how long it took to find employment after graduating from a career college. And I think about 30% or thereabouts said that they were hired prior to graduation. Like, where do you get that in this marketplace? It also speaks to the importance of career colleges and their ability to adapt to the workforce and the demands of the economy, the growing parts of the economy. I think the fact that, according to this study, 3 out of every 10 were hired prior to even finishing their course and finishing their program speaks to the fact that the career colleges are advancing programs that are really plugged in to what the job market wants. Anyone would kill for a stat like that. I don't think 30% of students and a lot of the other kind of educational opportunities that are out there can say, yeah, I haven't graduated and I got a job already in the field that I want in. Now we have to say that, that these students probably, because they're already in the job market, they're probably good and excellent at kind of pursuing opportunities and marketing themselves. But it speaks to the practicality, Michael, the practicality and the connection between the job market and what Canadian enterprises need and career colleges and the programs that they're delivering.
Well, what was interesting to me was this was done July 10th to August 18th. And there's a lot of noise this year about the economy and Trump and tariffs and everything that's going on in our country. So to see those statistics that they found work, 30% of them, while still studying, that also speaks volume, because this was not an easy time. There's a lot of turmoil right now that's causing confusion. Looking at a jobs report that's coming out this week, all kinds of things that are going on. And that really jumped out at me. And I think it's that closeness, that practical placement that's in almost every one of our programs, where you've got to be working with an employer. And one of the things that my college owners talked to me about since we left COVID and during COVID is how many more employers are putting their hand up to be associated with career colleges. And we're going to release a study that you did of our college owners later in the year or early next year that talks about how many partnerships and how many relationships they have with employers. And I was shocked. Some of them have 75, 78, 80 relationships with employers and associations where they reside to ensure those students get jobs. And these numbers are pointing out some of those things that pop out. So I found that 30% find a job while they're still in the program and 40% have children. You get that urgency, like they really need to go find a new job. And then one of the things that I looked at was that 43% of our students are looking at a new career. So you start putting these numbers together. We're changing lives every day.
Yeah. Think of the job market and the stress that people are on paying for the bills. The thing is that when we ask these college graduates about their concerns about taking the program at the career college, at the very top of the list was cost and being able to pay for the program. But what's interesting, if you look at the whole study overall, it's kind of like, okay, so they're looking to move up a level, they're looking to increase their income. They're worried about the cost. And you know what? Everybody's worried about costs. Then again, you look at the number in terms of the high proportion who are getting jobs out of the program, and you realize that, yes, they should be worried about the costs. But then when you look at the placement rate and the fact that, a significant proportion get job offers even before they finish their program, it speaks to I'll call it the stress of worrying about the finances actually pays off because of the jobs and the promotions and the extra income that they get kind of out of that decision to go to a career college.
Your job is to analyze the data and see what comes out of it. So it's interesting what you see, because we're now in a conversation with the federal government about some changes in the budget around student grants for longer term students in our institutions. And they've made a broad-based decision that will reduce some of that grant money available to our students. And we're talking to them about, you need to understand the impact. So ironically, the timing of this study is coming in very handy, because it's going to help the government understand the importance and the quality and the results that come out of our colleges. Another stat that popped out of me was that 3 of 5 students found work within 3 months in the field they were training for. So there was the 80% end up in the field they trained for, but 3 out of 5 are finding a new job within 90 days. That's pretty amazing. If you've been involved in any kind of hiring or recruitment process, none of them are quick or easy. Everything's a little slow to begin with, right? That's pretty impressive too.
I think what you put your finger on, Michael, is this whole idea of career colleges as perhaps the most agile part of our education system. The partnerships and connections that they have with employers and other organizations, their ability to deliver programs, their ability to get people into the to workforce, to retrain, upskill, and all that kind of stuff. And, in the context of what we've heard from the federal government and the free trade negotiations that are up in the air, and the prime minister talking about the need for Canada to be more resilient, the need for Canada to pivot and stuff like this, you look at the results of these like almost 3,000 career college graduates, and it's kind of like, okay, like this can fit in to Canada's need to pivot, be more resilient, have a more agile workforce, just because of the way that these career colleges, the programs that they have, the connections and the partnerships that they have, and their actually ability to deliver people in a program into a sector in a pretty targeted way.
We go back to this. I was interested, still looking at the study around some of the impacts of student aid and student grants, and there is a significant percentage of our students that do rely on those grants and those student loans. About 57% of the group that we surveyed rely on student loans, and then another 29% of them also rely on scholarships and grants. So when we talk about over 150,000 students a year that are graduating to go work in healthcare and IT and logistics and all kinds of these roles that are so crucial around building this new economy, it's interesting to talk about what you're saying. The impacts are going to be extremely high, and we got to make sure we understand them.
It's pretty clear when we asked about the financing, to your point, that student loans is really a foundational element for the majority of career college graduates, that they needed student loans to finance their education at the career college. That was like at 57%. We had the other ones, like they're also using their personal savings. They've got their family supporting them. They're also reporting that they have, they're working part-time, and some are even using their credit cards to help pay for stuff. It's not like it's all grants. It's that student loan component. It's like, I think, almost 3 times more important than personal savings and family support and all that kind of stuff. And anything that happens to that student loan support will have a material impact on the ability of these folks who are looking to upskill and reskill and to advance their careers, and it'll have a materially negative impact on their ability to do that.
You do. I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball here. I appreciate that comment because I think you're bang on. Anything surprise you in the survey? You mentioned earlier, and I mentioned to start off that you're the Chancellor of Carleton, a great institution in this country. Anything in this survey that we did that kind of surprised Nik Nanos? And how, another question for you that I'm intrigued with, how do you keep all these numbers in your head with all the work you do for clients? I don't know how you end up getting not confused all the time. Do you walk around with a massive binder of everything?
No, what binder? This is like so 1980s, Mike. Binder? Are you kidding me? There are no binders at Nanos.
We shouldn't talk about binders full of things, should we?
No, but that some of this stuff is the way I look at it. I'm interested in these types of studies. I was especially interested in this one because it had to do with career college graduates, and I have a personal interest in our education system. To me, it's like what puts a human face. I'm not sure if I'd use the word surprising, but I'll tell you one of the numbers that was the stickiest for me was we asked a question. I think it was about their financial hardship on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is no financial hardship at all and 10 is a major financial hardship. How was your experience in terms of your finances, like juggling your finances to pursue their education at a career college? And I think about 46% of career college students said that they'd had some major financial hardships, and only about 1 out of every 4 said that they didn't have any financial hardships. So here's the way I look at it when I see a number like that. So, Michael, if me or you are visiting a career college, right, and we're visiting a class or a campus or whatever it is, only 1 out of every 4 students in those career college graduates are thinking, yeah, I don't really have any financial hardships. I'm here. I'm, upskilling, reskilling, all that kind of stuff. That really, to me, it puts a human face on these folks that are going to career colleges to kind of help advance their career, learn new skills, earn more income. They're worried, right? Like they're doing their studies. To your point, they've got families. They usually have kids and stuff like that. And it's not easy. Stuff like that, to me, it puts a human face. It'd be like, okay, in this class, only one out of every four people are not worrying about paying for the bills because of this. And then I think that's when you start to talk about changes to the way student loans work. And then it'd be like, holy crap, man, that could really have a negative impact.
One of the stats that jumped out at me was that 29% of our students took out additional loans to cover basic expenses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Above and beyond, took out extra loans to make sure they could cover and they were having trouble. Is it 34% could not afford basic necessities? So it is a different kind of group. I'm still trying to get my head around it. And I wanted to ask you this one stat because I'm not quite sure what it means yet, but that over 70% of our students make under $60,000. And I'm trying to figure out if that's meaningful in the big picture, or if you've got any alignment to other things that you've looked at.
The way I look at it, when we look at, say, for example, that income number, the vast majority of Canadians are in that zone of
Are they? Okay.
60,000. Yeah.
That's what I wondered.
What this means is that the vast majority of Canadians probably have some sort of job that probably aligns with the career college and the career college offering.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
And that, it's not necessarily the worst jobs, and it's not necessarily the CEO of a company, although it could be. It's actually kind of we'd always talk about the normal distribution, like that curve. Do you remember stats from school, Michael?
I know a few of them, yeah.
Well, the bell curve, the middle of the bell curve where 70% of all Canadians are. So to me, when I looked at that stat, I thought, okay, these career college programs are for the vast majority of Canadians. It touches the greatest part of our economy in terms of individual jobs. And the career college is a pathway. The career college, according to the survey and what career college graduates tell us, career colleges are a pathway to making more money in your existing job. Career colleges are a pathway to advancing their current career. Career colleges are a pathway to perhaps changing their career a little bit or starting a new career. That's the way that I kind of see that number in terms of the income.
It was interesting when you dive in and you start putting some of the numbers together. It was about 43% of our students are obviously looking to pursue and change careers or start a new career. That makes sense. But then when you dig a little bit deeper into the numbers, you realize that one of the reasons these students came to our institutions is around the mode of learning. I could learn online. I could learn on weekends. I could learn at night. Back to the earlier statistics, they're working. They've got families. They've got kids. So it's interesting when we talk about big public policy issues. Not only are we driving to the workforce, as you just mentioned, that we need, we're making it easier for people to get there. And that's why the students gravitate over to our colleges, because they can find a path that works in their own life.
If I could add something, it's not just making it easier for people to get there. Career colleges deliver the educational experience on the terms that their students want, not what the career colleges think they do. It's not like we're in the business of doing it this way. But that flexibility in terms of in-person, online, synchronous, asynchronous, all that kind of stuff is important in terms of getting as many people as possible to benefit from the programs that are delivered.
You're an interesting guy in Ottawa. You get the grand scheme of advocacy and research and all the things you need to do to make your case. I say our biggest challenge is our members are so busy doing their jobs, they don't have time to go do the advocacy and do the other work because they're all entrepreneurs running small businesses, taking risks from 20 colleges to a couple of thousand in the largest. And it's interesting. So this data, we hope, gives us some tools. We were honored to get a chance to work with you on it because I do believe you're, if not the most, you're one of the most respected public research firms in Canada, despite our friendship, because that shows lack of judgment on your part. But you guys have built a fantastic reputation around the work you do. But it's interesting as I look back and I talk to our members who get frustrated over some government decisions, it's the challenge sometimes is they're busy doing. They don't have teams of lobbyists that work in their shops or advocacy people. They can't send 100 people to Ottawa to pressure the government to do something because they're just busy training the next class. I wanted to just point something out because you said it. On the students' terms of what they need to do. We talk about back to school as being the Tuesday or the Monday after Christmas and the Tuesday after Labor Day. In a career college, today is back to school day for somebody. Maybe 1,000 students, maybe 100 students started a program today on a Friday that we're doing this interview. There's a group of students that are starting a new program today or tomorrow, and it's a 6-week program or it's a 7-month program. And back to school day was now because they need to start work. And once the college gets the class together of 12 people, 20 people, boom, they go. And they're off in to start teaching. So I wanted to point that out because I think that's something that doesn't come out of the survey necessarily, but it definitely comes out of my experience working with this group.
I think one of the challenges for our educational system writ large, and I think the career colleges are overcoming this challenge, is that education is it's the same structure that we've probably had in the steam engine. Like class starts at 8 o'clock and finishes at this time, and it's on these days. And as opposed to now, education can be a 7 day a week, 24-hour a day endeavor. There's no season. You look at the way many of our educational organizations are kind of built. There are seasons for everything, but what's clear on the career college front is that it's actually about being more agile. It's about, you know what? It doesn't have to start on a particular day and it doesn't have to finish on a particular day and it doesn't have to be fixed in this way. That you basically want to bring students together, deliver the upskilling education that they want to advance their career or pivot. In a way, it's kind of more in sync with the world and lives that we're living now than 25 years ago. Because people probably don't even remember 25 years ago, all the stores were closed on Sunday.
Oh, I did. We just talked about that with somebody the other day. I miss those days in a way. And as I flash back to something here, I was thinking about one of my college owners I was talking to the other day was reminding me that our classes, to build on what you said, are 9 to 2, Monday to Friday for that group. That same program might also have a 4 to 9 group because if over 75% of our students are working, they can't do 9 to 10 and then 1 to 2 and 3 to 4. That does not work in their lifestyle and doesn't lead to the outcomes they need because they just can't afford to work that way. They will be out. Go back to the financial data we talked about. Those two things don't work well together.
And one thing that I do know from the work that we do for other colleges and universities and stuff like that is the demand for, I'll call it micro-credentialing and micro-learning is definitely on the upswing, where people want a focus, intense kind of educational experience that is on point for achieving a particular kind of thing in their career. One of the sweet spots that I think career colleges are probably better structured to be agile like that compared to other parts of the education system, speaks to the experience that folks can have through the career colleges. And we have to be fair. My takeaway from this is that there's an important role that career colleges can play for everyone and for most Canadians. It's not the be all and end all, and it's not going to do everything because there's a bigger education system that includes law schools and universities and all those other types of things. But it's pretty clear that it plays a really interesting role in terms of being agile, focusing specifically on the job market, connecting with employers, and making sure that Canada as a country is competitive.
Mm-hmm. And we need to do more work with colleges and university to talk about laddering students up and recognizing our credentials and taking a PSW into a nursing program or an early childhood assistant into an early childhood educator program, because there's also an economic benefit of allowing someone to be trained up to a level, go work for 3 years, build up their war chest, and then go back and take the next level of their career path. Especially important with recent immigrants to Canada who actually have the skill sets that aren't recognized here. Give them a path to get back to the career they had when they lived somewhere else. And we can do more of that work. We never claim to be the be all and the end all. Everybody has a role to play. And we're training tens of thousands of personal support workers to go work in long-term care.
One thing I'd like to add to that, Michael, is one of the things that you said about the beginning about all the partnerships and, in the other study that we had done with the career colleges themselves is I don't think other players in the educational space are proactively or as connected to the job market as career colleges. And, the thing is that, for what's clear to me, at least, or what seems to come through in the numbers is that whatever the career colleges are doing, they have all these partnerships. The folks that are going through the career college and graduating are getting jobs. And I think a lot of it has to do with them being in contact with employers and knowing what employers want and delivering that.
There's a great Canadian company in Atlantic, Canada, named after a large family from New Brunswick. And they bought a career college I don't know all the details around why, but I know that they're looking for more graduates from that career college to go to work inside the Irving group of companies. And there's no way, and we're seeing more and more of those conversations. I think that connectivity directly into the workforce is so crucial. And that's why we see these numbers, 30% of them employed by the company that did the practical placement with them. It's just such a perfect alignment. It just shows what our colleges are doing. And I want to go back to the micro-credentialing thing just for a minute before we wrap up. The interesting thing for us is that we also operate under heavy regulation in the provinces we operate in. And we need to make sure we get that stuff right around micro-credentialing and other things to make sure you're delivering value to those students and they're getting skills. We partnered with CompTIA this year, probably the leading cybersecurity training company in the world, for their materials. And it's really starting to pay off as more and more students are starting to look at this program going, that's the one. And we did a basic search. When we talked about who our partner would be, we did a search of cybersecurity jobs. And a vast majority of them came up with CompTIA credentials. That's what employers wanted. So that's where we went. And what's happening, employers are starting to call us going, how do we become a part of getting some of those graduates? Because there's a huge need for cybersecurity people too. And that is one of the best examples of a program that you talked about. And we talked about laddering. They can come in and take a couple of the courses. They can take our full course that we're doing, or they can take one here, and they can build up into something and go to work. Any last thoughts for us, Nick? I was going to talk to you about another topic before, but on the study, interested to see if there's any last thoughts you have.
Well, my last couple thoughts are, it's pretty clear for these career college graduates, they enter the career college with purpose. These student loans make a big difference to them in terms of financial. And even with the student loans, they're still worried about paying for the bills. The good news is that the outcome overwhelmingly results in a job, right? So yeah, there's stress. Yeah, there's hard work, but it looks like, at least from the survey that we did of career colleges, that they're delivering on their promise to their students.
The nice news is we're not seeing any changes to the student loan program, and this is a very detailed and focused change the government's making. But any impact, any changes, they're making some changes to student grants over 2 years. But any change can change a student's decision into whether or not they pursue that career. So I appreciate the conversation. I wanted to ask you, because we both share an engagement of interest around the Royal Canadian Navy. You're an honorary captain. I'm intrigued. Why are you so passionate about working with them and doing what you do with the Navy?
Well, I'm a big believer in serving. We all serve our communities and our country in different ways. And the Royal Canadian Navy is just a top-notch group of people, young, who are there to serve. I also, full disclosure, I have a son that's an officer in the Royal Canadian Navy. So, I'm all in. I think what's really I found interesting about the Royal Canadian Navy and the Canadian Armed Forces is that you can have a whole bunch of different careers. It's not just being on a ship. You can be on a ship either as an engineer giving orders, as an electrician, as, a weapons officer, or you can be in public relations helping to recruit people. You can be in HR. And I think one of the things that I thought was quite interesting, all the different kinds of careers that you can have. Like, it's not just being on a ship. There are a lot of different careers that you can have in the Royal Canadian Navy. And I think that allows young people to serve their country in a lot of different ways.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's interesting. We've started, because of the engagement I've had with them recently, we've started a side podcast here called Sea of Opportunities. And what we've been doing is interviewing. I think we've got about 10 episodes out. They're nice 7 to 12-minute long interviews of members on the HMCS St. John's. And we interviewed them actually as they traveled from Halifax over to the Mediterranean for a posting they were doing. They're about to start heading back, going to be meeting them in St. John's when they're on their return. And we're going to interview more of them, but we're now starting to reach in and interview people on shore, people on other ships, people who are connected to the Navy. We had the chance to interview Vice Admiral Topshee. And it's very interesting to hear about these careers. And the other thing I found interesting, every one of them has 2 jobs on board. The chef is also an aide to people who are injured. And the firefighter is also a weapons officer. It's quite interesting to get to know them. You've had the pleasure of being on ships. I was on the William Hall last week for 3 days. It's a pretty incredible experience to be around these men and women, isn't it?
It's absolutely. But I love this idea of having 2 jobs, right? Like, you could be scuba diver, part of the scuba diving kind of unit, and then you could be perhaps giving orders on a ship, or you can, you'd have trade. But And the other thing is that's not like that in all navies. Some of the navies, we could talk about this another time. Some navies, you just have one job. But this whole idea of cross-training actually builds greater resilience in terms of the ability and capability of the Royal Canadian Navy. It probably makes things a little easy. It makes things a little interesting because you have more than one responsibility, and I think everyone benefits as a result.
Yeah, no, I'm honored to be associated with them and to be able to spend the time with them. I've got on 2 tours now with the crew out on St. John's and now on William Hall, HMCS William Hall. A special thanks. We like to mention it in different podcasts just to make sure people highlight it and look at some of the opportunities and talk to their friends and family. And maybe over the holidays, if he gets a chance to be home, thank your son for his service to our nation too, because it is service and we appreciate it.
Yep.
So with that, I'm going to say we bring this to a conclusion. Always good to see you, Nik. We will catch up in person soon, I'm sure. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for the work that you did with us. And we will end this week's edition of the Ed Up Canada podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Ed Up Canada podcast. We release new episodes regularly, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you know when they are officially out. If you love this episode, please leave a 4 or 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts so that others can also discover how a set of skills can lead to success. Thanks for learning with us.